Can a person be Jewish and Christian? I hear there's certain people out there who say that, certain people, I don't know, certain odd personages who claim that. So is that possible, to be a Jewish Christian or a Messianic Jew or whatever sort of terminology you want to apply to it? Let's look at the objections. Rabbi Doug Kahn states, logically, one cannot believe that the Messiah has not yet come, as traditional Jews do, and that he also has come, as Christians believe. See, logically, and that is very logical on the surface. Okay, it's a very logical statement, but on the surface. Hopefully we'll dig a little deeper than the surface in this section. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan states, conversion to Christianity or any other faith is an abandonment of Judaism. Christianity negates the fundamentals of Jewish faith, and one who accepts it rejects the very essence of Judaism. A Jew who accepts Christianity might call himself a Jewish Christian, but he is no longer a Jew. He can no longer even be counted as part of a Jewish congregation. Conversion to another faith is an act of religious treason. It is one of the worst possible sins that a Jew can commit. The truth is that anyone who falls into the missionaries' net, is eternally cast away from before his God. Incidentally, let me just point out, that's not a typo, G-D. Did you notice that? That's, it's part of Jewish reverence for God. They won't not only not pronounce his name, they won't even type out G-O-D. So they'll put a G-D. That's why that's like that. Again, some Jews do that, some don't. For instance, if you're corresponding with a Jew, you might do that. I think they'll really appreciate it. And Rabbi Shmuel Arkush writes, when a Jew accepts Jesus, he not only rejects the history of his people, but by adopting Christian faith, he places himself outside the Jewish religion. By accepting a Christian God, you commit a cardinal sin. You become a traitor to your people and cannot be counted a Jew. Certainly some strongly worded statements. Let's look at some statements by Michael Asheri. He states, the full answer is that to be Jewish, you either have to be born Jewish or undergo religious conversion to Judaism. But what does born Jewish mean? Anyone born of a Jewish mother is Jewish by birth. Let me stop there for a moment, because of course that's not biblical. Okay, that came about by tradition, and I have an issue with it. For instance, I'm a full-blooded Jew. Both my parents are Jewish, but my wife is a Gentile, so my children are not considered Jewish whatsoever. Well, I would figure they're at least half Jewish, right? I mean, I'm Jewish and she's not. Well, half. But they say no. If they were not born to a Jewish mother, then they're not Jewish. Now, thinking back to a private Jewish school in 7th or 8th grade, I recall that Mr. Mintz said, the reason that came about is because you might not always know who the father is, but you don't always know who the mother is. So that's why it's traced through the mother, okay? Now, see, in my thinking, it's don't you besmirch my wife, watch out. So that's why that tradition came about, really. And Mr. Mintz, I remember that if we walked into his class without a head covering, he'd say, gentlemen, you are naked. And we'd have to go run around the building borrowing a yarmulke or a hat or something and go back into the class. But anyhow, that's just a little personal note there. Okay, so continuing the quote here. It is possible to be Jewish without being religious in any accepted sense. There are atheists who are nonetheless Jews. The one basic condition for being Jewish, that the Jewish people are the chosen people of God, and that it is precisely to obey his commandments, all of them, that God chose them, and they in turn choose him. Now that's kind of odd, because now it's sort of like he's taking it up a notch. You see, first he states just being born Jewish, you're Jewish. Then he says you can even be an atheist. Well, now he says, no, well, you have to keep the commandments. So it's a little confused there. He continues, being a Jew is also a great privilege, and there are certain obligations attached to that privilege which we are not free to reject. Now he states that he's commenting on a group of Jews called Reconstructionists who, quote, seem to be attending a definition of Judaism without revelation and finally without God, based only on an undefined peoplehood of Israel. In spite of their denial of everything basic to Judaism, it should not, for a moment, be thought that these people are no longer Jews. The reason is clear and has already been pointed out that Judaism is more than a religion. The Jews are a people. And Reconstructionists have made it clear that they have not cut themselves off. If they have not cut themselves off, we cannot cut them off. What is really significant here, to be exact, is that they have not adopted another religion in place of Judaism, or, as the early Christians did, create another religion. As for those few people who, having accepted or even solicited baptism, continue to maintain that they are Jews, and in that guise attempt to win over faithful Jews to their religion, we should not hesitate to classify them not only as no longer Jews, but as active enemies of Israel, deserving of our unceasing opposition and scorn. And that's why I'm quoting so much from this gentleman, because, did you catch that? You can be an atheist, still Jew. You can deny everything basic to Judaism, still a Jew. You can try to maintain Judaism without God or revelation, still Jew. But you believe Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, that's it. That's the point where you're gone. That's it. And that's very common in Judaism, by the way. In fact, Rabbi Shmuley Botea states, Jews have rarely taken a serious look at the teachings of Jesus. Indeed, in most Jewish households, the New Testament itself is completely taboo. The Jews will not accept Jesus as a savior, but why not as a sage? They will not embrace him as a god, but why not a guru? After all, many Jews study the teachings of Buddha, even while remaining faithfully loyal to Jewish observance. And let me point out that a publication named the Jewish Bulletin of North California published an article on April 27th, 2001, which bashed or besmirched Jews for Jesus, and then published another article on June 8th, 2001, which praised a concoction of Buddhist meditation and Jewish worship. I mean, this stuff is really prevalent. You can basically do anything you want, just yeah, other than Jesus, anything. Now let's look at a more secular argument from Lawrence Epstein, who wrote a book called Questions and Answers on Conversion to Judaism. And he states that no doubt that according to Judaism, a Jew who believes in Jesus as Messiah is no longer Jewish. He states, Jewish law does state that a person born Jewish is always Jewish. However, the person who voluntarily accepts Jesus as Messiah forfeits the privileges of being a Jew. That at least has been the consistent ruling of the Israeli Supreme Court. Therefore, for example, a born Jew who follows Jesus is halachically Jewish, but is not recognized as any longer a part of the community and loses certain civil rights, such as the right of return. A born Jew who has accepted another religion renounces certain rights as a Jew. That's why I said it's secular reasoning. He's appealing to civil rights, privileges, part of the community. The Israeli Supreme Court, I mean, this isn't the Sanhedrin. I mean, this is a secular political court. Okay, so let's look at the response to the objection, because it's crystal clear, it really is. The Encyclopedia Judaica 3/211 states, in Jewish religious law, it is technically impossible for a Jew born to a Jewish mother or properly converted to Judaism to change his religion. Even though a Jew undergoes the rites of admission to another religious faith and formally renounces the Jewish religion, he remains, as far as the halakha is concerned, a Jew, albeit a sinner. For the born Jew, Judaism is not a matter of choice. In the technical halakhic sense, apostasy is impossible. Now you'll notice in that quote a citation to Talmud Sanhedrin 44a, which states that, quote, Israel has sinned. Rabbi Abba ben Zabda said, even though the people have sinned, they are still called Israel. And the footnote states, Israel is the name of honor for the people when faithful to God. Thus, a sinning Jew is still a Jew. Okay? The Universal Jewish Encyclopedia states, according to the Jewish religious law, everyone born of a Jewish mother is and remains a part of Judaism. Hence, a converted Jew is regarded solely as a transgressor of the Jewish religious law. Converts were more energetically disliked and despised by the Jewish consciousness than by the Jewish religious law. The New Standard Jewish Encyclopedia states, according to the Jewish law, the apostate remains a Jew, albeit a sinner, and no formal ceremony is required if he returns to Judaism. Nevertheless, for psychological reasons, a ceremony was sometimes considered desirable, prayers for the occasion figuring in some modern rituals. A popular dictionary of Judaism states, according to the Jewish law, an apostate is still counted among the Jewish community. He can, for example, contract a Jewish marriage. However, under the law of return, apostate Jews may not become citizens of the state of Israel. I mean, is that clear enough? It's like they're paraphrasing each other. These are the facts. That's why it sounds the same. It's the same exact thing. These are the facts of the matter. Now, if you notice, it's Jewish opinion, psychological reasons, consciousness. This is what will say a Jewish believer in Jesus is no longer Jewish. But the religious law of Judaism itself says otherwise. Do you see the point? Individual opinion is one, and the actual facts of the law is another. Religious law, right. So what is a Messianic Jew or a Jewish Christian? What we're talking about is a Jewish person who believes that the Jewish Messiah has come in the person of the Jewish man Jesus, as prophesied by the Jewish scriptures, written about in the New Testament, made up of 27 books, 25 of which were written by Jews, and 2 which were written by Luke. And he was a doctor, so maybe he was Jewish too. That's a joke, sorry. I mean, that's what we're dealing with, is you're saying that a Jewish person who believes that the Jewish Messiah has come and therefore is following his new Torah, oh, you're no longer Jewish. Now, if anybody ever says that, I would say, is that your personal opinion? Or are you assuring me that you have studied the Halakha and you're citing what your own religious Jewish law is? That's the key question there. I mean, I hope it's exceedingly obvious by now that the religious Jewish law, in fact, says, no, they're still Jewish. You might not like them. Yes, they're considered sinners.